Well, good morning. We're in the middle of November. Deer hunters are stalking the elusive whitetail. Thanksgiving is coming up this week, and Christmas is just over a month away. Meantime, in Lansing, the legislature has only a few weeks left before the end of the year. What remains on their agenda? We'll talk about that right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
There are 110 members in the Michigan House of Representatives. Our guest this morning represents the 110th district, which, as it turns out, is the one located the furthest from the state capital. State Representative Scott Dianda's district includes the counties of Houghton, Keweenaw, Baraga, Ontonagon, Gogebic, Iron, and Ishpeming and Powell townships from Marquette County. Representative Dianda, welcome back to the Ryan Report.
Thank you for having me on, Don. Good to see you.
Good to have you back with us. You know, you probably are not only the furthest from the capital, that probably is one of the largest geographically too, isn't it?
It is the largest area for the state of Michigan to be represented in the House districts.
Yeah, and with term limits, you're now one of the senior members of the House. In fact, I think you're probably the senior member from Upper Michigan.
I definitely am the senior member from Upper Michigan, and you can tell by my gray hair that I'm getting more senior.
Well, I didn't mean it that way. And this, you're going to be welcoming a new member to the Michigan House, Sarah Kembenzi, elected from the 109th. Will you be reaching out to her?
Definitely. I worked very hard to help Sarah get elected, and we're going to be very much a powerhouse in the UP again, having a good bipartisan discussion on what we need.
What are the challenges for someone just starting out like she will be, especially in the middle of a term? Does that present some unique challenges?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is the fact that, we're going to start where there's a lot of these big issues that have been brought up, and she hasn't been briefed on it. But I know she's going to get up to speed very quickly because we're going to be there to help her, along with Senator Casperson.
I know you're a member of the, you're vice chair, minority vice chair of the Tourism Committee. We're coming up on the end of the year. Has Michigan had a good year as far as tourism is concerned?
We've had really a great year, Don. When we see the numbers of what the Mackinac Bridge crossings are and the people that have been coming through all of our counties, to be able to see the numbers over at Pictured Rocks and over in the Porcupine Mountains throughout the Sault Ste. Marie area, it's been phenomenal. Every business owner that I've talked to has had a great year, and we look forward to more coming after the first of the year with the snowfall.
I'll be talking with John Madigan in a few weeks, and John does a great job of trying to brand the UP as a destination.
John does a great job, and we really appreciate everything that he does because he just doesn't see it as one area of the UP. He sees it at the entire UP and also the state of Michigan. For John to be able to bring those folks to that area, he always promotes them to be able to come all the way to the West End, which we just really appreciate.
Well, let's talk about some of the issues in Lansing. Everybody agrees, I think, that something has to be done about auto insurance rates in Michigan. Auto insurance reform has been on the agenda. There was a bill, you voted against it, the majority voted against it. What was your concern with that bill?
Well, my main concern was the fact we were going to give up 80% of our benefits for like a $14 a month savings. And one of the people from the Upper Peninsula that drives over 100,000 miles a year, I see it very clearly. I just don't want to have people be in a spot where they're going to have an accident and down the road they lose everything that they worked for. Their home, their college education for their children, their retirement, the hunting camp that they have for 5-6 generations. And I think that we got a better bill package that's out there in a bipartisan way with also 22 Republicans that have sponsored that package. And I think that we got a lot of better things that we can do with car insurance. And I think that it starts immediately with the fact that we cannot profile people depending on their credit rating, depending on their education or their gender. Those are the things that have to be done. And there is a great bill package to be able to do it, and I think now they are going to be to the point where it will get done because the discussion has been there on a bill that was not good for the people. And the bill packages that we have coming forward will make the changes to address the fraud, to address the credit rating, to be able to have the seniors to have an opt-out. If you're over 62 years old, they would not have to pay for the no-fault insurance piece.
Are you hopeful this can happen in this term of the legislature?
I'm very hopeful that it's going to happen, and we have very positive feelings that it's going to, because when we had 63 members out of 110 said no to a bad bill, and when everybody is pushing the chairwoman Lana Theis to be able to have that bill be taken up with that package again in the insurance committee, we know that it's going to get done because the pressure is being put on everybody to get it done with a good bill package.
Another issue that's been with us for a long time is the dark store, big box store. Supreme Court upheld the ruling by the State Appeals Court in favor of the city of Escanaba, saying in effect the tax tribunal could not use that approach. Does this solve the issue, or do we still need some legislative work?
We're going to need legislative work to be able to have it where if you are going to use the services provided by our counties and our townships and cities, that you're going to have to pay for that service. And I think that that's something that I've sponsored legislation in the past, and we're going to have to readdress it. Because just in this one instant, we have some relief out of it, but the ones that are grandfathered in, the ones that have been built already, we are still going to be missing out on those taxes into the future. So we want to make sure that if you're going to use this service provided by any type of city municipality or township municipality, like a water system or sewer system that was designed to also accommodate these new people that were going to come in our area, we want to make sure that they're paying for it just like the rest of us are.
This, it seems like a common sense solution, but yet it runs into opposition. Is it likely that something can be done in both the House and the Senate this term?
Well, we're hopeful that something will be able to get done. The problem that we face is, and a lot of our partners in Lower Michigan in the House and the Senate really have a very strong feeling that the Chamber of Michigan, the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, is holding a position that they don't want to see any legislative change take place. But what is happening is their areas are also getting very tired of the fact that they're not being able to collect the taxes off of these other stores, the big box stores. And what's happening is there's a lot of discussion now in other areas of the county that have a lot bigger budgets than ours that are starting to feel the financial impact. So I think as the financial impact affects all of us, we are all going to see more of a change that it's going to happen.
Okay, got some more questions for you. We'll
Sure.
get back to those in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Once again this morning, our guest is State Representative Scott Dianda. We were talking before the broadcast, you mentioned autonomous cars and what kind of an interesting future it holds, but it's something we kind of have to keep an eye on too, isn't it?
Well, most definitely. We passed a lot of legislation in the last year in Lansing to be able to have these autonomous vehicles for vehicle codes and to be able to test them on our road system. And I think it's beyond just what we're going to look at for research and development in Michigan to finished product. We also got to really take a good look at what we're missing out on, the discussion of the natural resources that it takes to create that system with the autonomous vehicle, especially up here in the UP. And we've got so many natural resources, whether it's the iron ore or the copper or the nickel mine that's happening up here in the north of Marquette County. We really got to look at what the future is going to play for us to be able to have a job creator out of those products. And I think that one of the things that a lot of us think about is that part that it takes to create that system. And that system is made with natural resources. And I really like to see that the discussions out there for the forest products industry to also use a lot of the wood fiber to create those new vehicles.
And of course, there are a lot of people of my vintage who say, what, cars that drive themselves? Well, but it's going to happen someday. There's been an issue where the Natural Resources Trust Fund, it's been a great program. Provides grants for many good purposes around the state. There was an issue this year where the legislature wanted to go beyond what the trust fund was granting. What's your stand on what's happening there?
Well, my stand on that, with the Attorney General ruling on it, is the fact that we need to make sure that the legislative process does not influence where the projects are going to be held and where they're going to go. I think that the great part is that we have the Natural Resource Commission, and we have John Matanich, who is the chair, along with J.R. Richardson from over in Ogden County. I think more of that power and authority needs to be vested in the appointed commissioners for the DNR Natural Resource Commission. I think they have a good oversight of what's needed throughout the state, and then it's not political. I mean, these are folks that are appointed, but they have a good idea what Michigan needs for the natural resources.
But the issue this year seemed to be that the trust fund wasn't using all the funds that it could have used. Is that a fact?
Well, that is a fact. I know that there's a lot of projects that, sometimes they start to put in for and then they don't materialize, where there's some money that's left over. But still, I think it's better off to have it in the hands of the DNR with the Natural Resource Commission to be able to have a say in those things.
Okay. I know you also serve on the House Energy Committee. Obviously, the legislature passed a energy plan bill for Michigan. There's now been a plan developed to build 2 gas-fired plants in Upper Michigan. Is that a good step forward?
Yes, I think it's a good step forward because it shows that we're going to generate power in the UP. And with those 2 plants, to have them be very efficient, just as efficient as the ones that we have over here at Marquette Board of Light, to be able to control our own destiny, and especially when you look at the grid itself, to strengthen the grid, to have the power in the UP where we're not dependent on other folks from other areas to send us that power. I think one of the things people got to realize too is we're going to have people employed in those places. And I think that the service is something that has to be front and center when we have the discussion in Michigan. Because we all know if we have a power failure, we want to make sure that that power comes on immediately. We're not just talking about, you know, the inconvenience of today and not watching a television program. We're talking about life support systems. We're talking about people that are on oxygen machines and everything. So I mean, to be able to have that start up right away and have it in our backyard, I think is a very good thing.
The Michigan Agency for Energy also looked into the possibility of establishing connections, transmission connections with Lower Michigan and Canada, but apparently studies have shown that would not be financially effective. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that, and I was one that said right out of the gate about 3 years ago, for us to be able to bridge the lower and the upper peninsula together for the cost that we'd have to spread that across Michigan, it wasn't going to work. I just want to say too that, you know, when we start looking at some of these energy solutions, that we got to have the discussion with folks that are in the business itself, and especially with doing the research. And one of the folks that I constantly have conversations with is Michigan Tech and their electrical engineering department, because a lot of these things are beyond a lot of us as elected officials, because we're not engineers in electricity. So I think that, you know, we all have to definitely take a look at beyond some of the things that we talk about politically. We got to see what makes the best sense, and we got to talk to experts that really know the cost of doing business on these systems.
Okay. We'll talk about some other things in just a couple of minutes. We'll take one more break and be back with more on today's Ryan Reports. Again, we're talking this morning with State Representative Scott Dianda from the 110th District. A couple of things quickly. A lot of talk about gun laws. The House wanted to, in fact, passed a law to not require concealed weapons permits. The Senate is looking at legislation, or did approve legislation, to allow people to carry guns in schools. What's your reaction to all of this?
Well, I think my reaction is just like a lot of other people across the state of Michigan, especially the UP. We have a lot of discussion out there about where you should carry a gun, what's safe, what's not. The true part to a lot of these things is just a mental health issue. I mean, we saw what happened down in Texas, which was just a terrible tragedy that happened. But and also, you know, what we start to see being in the legislative process is if we start eliminating where we're going to be able to carry a firearm, is it going to also help in the fact that if we do have some type of event that happens, can a responsible, good citizen help that situation? Instead of having a massacre, you know, is it going to be better to be able to have somebody there who is trained, to be able to have someone there who is a good citizen to stop a bad situation from getting worse? So that's what's on my mind about the gun laws, Don. I mean, anytime we put more restrictions on the Second Amendment, I don't think it's good for us, for citizens.
Okay. I know you also opposed plans to change the teacher pension system. What was your thinking there?
Well, my thought process on that too is that we only graduated, I think, 7 people from education out of Northern. You know, we're not seeing the people getting into education that wants to be teachers. And every time that we start taking another hit or a cut away from the teachers, I think we're going to have a hard time to recruit into the future. So I was totally against that, to be able to change that system on them. We had a hybrid system in Michigan. It was working fine. And I think that now we're just going to have a hard time recruiting more people. And I think that's part of it, is that when we look at the future of who we are going to get to have in charge of our best asset that we have in this state, our youth. We got to have people that are passionate, and we got to have people that are not going to be on assistance the first year that they come out of school with a lot of debt, where they're also going to be entitled to a bridge card. I think that we got to start looking at where we're going to have our priorities set.
I know you voted against the budget, and we don't have time to cover all the reasons, but I believe one had to do with education and funding.
Definitely. The biggest thing that we have up here in the UP is that we're about $7,600 per pupil. Other areas of the state that they're getting about $12,000 to $16,000. I think it has to be a fair issue where we take the amount of people that we have in school, we divide by the number of the budget, and it's got to be fair. Our citizens and our kids up here deserve to have an equal playing field. And a lot of our costs in the UP with the electricity, transportation costs, and just dealing with the snow is a lot more than a lot of places in Lower Michigan. And I think it would be a lot more better for our situation to be able to have a certain amount of dollars per child in every school district the same.
Maybe get your reaction to a couple of things that aren't in the legislature, but there is a move afoot, a petition drive to change the way districts are apportioned in Michigan. Do you think that's a good idea?
I do. I think that, it has to be done fair. When we look at gerrymandering, you look at the UP, and there's really not a way that they can gerrymander one way or the other to give one political party a benefit. But in Lower Michigan, it looks like zippers. I mean, the lines run all over like a string. And I think that it got to be in a process that it's going to be away from the legislative process independently to take a look at doing what's right for people in Michigan, to have those folks represented in a certain area, whether it's a township, county, or city, to be able to look at all these lines and just move them around. It's crazy. I don't think that that's very good at all for us in Michigan, for our citizens.
The other one that's being considered is a part-time legislature. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I tell you what, if I can go from about 110 hours a week down to about 25, I know darn well I'll never get down to Lansing very often. And I think the biggest thing that people lose focus on is the fact that, it's just, you got a full-time problem all the time with the bureaucrats and how a lot of things work with the state agencies. And the only voice we have is through our elected officials. So I'm here to tell you the bulk of what I do is just taking care of constituent problems, whether it's a problem with unemployment, whether it's a problem with a state agency. Myself and 2 other people that work as my staff work tirelessly to try to get those issues taken care of. And I think that if we went to a part-time legislature, especially for the UP, being 500 miles from Lansing, I think we're going to lose a lot of service. And that's all it's about, is taking care of our people and providing service. It's just not about passing laws.
Okay, only a minute left. 2018 is going to be a political year. You've already announced that you're going to be running for the 38th Senate seat?
Yes, I am. I'm going to run for the 38th Senate seat. Senator Casperson is term limited, and so am I in the House. I'm throwing my hat into the ring to be able to serve the people of the 12 counties in Upper Michigan, just like I've served in the 7 counties. And I just feel very strongly that we got to have a good independent voice down there to be able to work hard and fight for our values and what it's going to be.
And this will open up the 110th seat for someone as well.
Yes, it's going to be a very big political year, and I can tell by the way that the numbers were in Marquette County and all the surrounding counties in the 109th that people are engaged in the process. And I think we're going to have a record turnout with a lot of people that are going to come out.
Okay, it'll be interesting. Thanks for coming in and talking with
Don.
us this morning.
Thank you.
I'll be back with some other political thoughts for you in just a couple of minutes. Well, today I have a history lesson for you about a man named Alvin Richards. Born in St. Louis County, Minnesota on October 6, 1886. At some point he moved to Marquette County and worked as a mining superintendent. Mr. Richards was married, a member of the Methodist Church and the Freemasons. Why should we care about Alvin Richards? Was there something unique about his life? In fact, there was. Mr. Richards was the last man to be elected as a Republican to the State House of Representatives from a district that included Marquette County. I describe the district that way because the shape and names of the State House districts have changed over the years. What makes this especially unique is when it happened. Now, Mr. Richards was first elected to represent Marquette County in 1946. He was re-elected several times, but the last time he would win that seat was in 1952. And that was the last time a Republican was elected to represent Marquette County or whatever district it was part of. Today it's the 109th State House District. How did Mr. Richards' political career come to an end? Well, it happened in 1954 when he was defeated by none other than Democrat Dominic Jacobetti, who went on to receive legendary status in the State House as he served from 1955 until his death in 1994, which made him the longest-serving legislator in Michigan history. Jacobetti was followed by Mike Prusi, Steve Adamini, Steve Lindbergh, John Kivala, and now Sarah Cambenzi, who all combined to keep the Democrat victory streak intact. Is this kind of party longevity typical for the UP? Not in all cases. The 110th district in the western UP has often selected a Democrat, but there have been some exceptions. In the eastern end of the UP, in a district that's often attached to the northern lower peninsula, they often vote Republican, but there too there have been exceptions. One notable one was Democrat Pat Gagliardi, who represented that district for 16 years, starting in 1983. The present 108th district, which includes Delta, Dickinson, and Menominee counties, has been a definite exception to the rule, having elected both Republican and Democratic state representatives over the years. Among the many winners in that district were Democrats Bart Stupak, who went on to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives, and Judy Narrett, who was the first woman elected to represent a UP district. Republicans included Tom Casperson, who currently serves in the Michigan Senate, and Bo LaFave, who now represents that district. There have been other noteworthy representatives from that district on both sides of the political aisle. Well, that's our political history lesson for today, and you can draw whatever conclusions you'd like from the information provided. One thought you may consider: the past doesn't always predict the future, but it's worth considering. I'll be back in a minute. That's all the time we have for this morning. There is time to remind you that you can get the latest news anytime at uppermichigansource.com. You can also connect with this show at that same address. Thanks to State Representative Scott Dianda for joining us this morning for an update on developments in Lansing. And thank you for being here. Let's make plans to meet next Sunday at the same time. Have a good week.